Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? So, to give this interview a little bit of context to my Why People Are Quitting Retro Gaming video, two guys left some great comments. They were kind of cool and retro projections. In their comments, they touched on stuff that I didn't even mention in the video. So I figure, hey, why not sit them both down and interview them, get their thoughts on the current retro gaming market, and hopefully this turned out good. I don't know, we'll see. Enjoy the interview. Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? So today's going to be a bit of a weird interview. I have two people here with me. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I'm John Engel, Retro Projections.
Yep, I'm Jason from Kinda Cool.
Yeah, so these two guys left me some great in-depth comments that I think you guys said more about retro gaming than I think I did in the video. Like you guys said more stuff than I could.
That's because it was such a good topic.
Yeah, I just saw a bunch of, big retro gaming. I just saw a bunch of big retro gaming YouTubers saying they're going to quit retro gaming. And I mean, to some extent, I can definitely understand, And I think you guys said this in the comments. There's a lot more collectors than gamers nowadays. At least from my point of view, it seems like a lot of people are in it just for the money, not for the nostalgia and actual, games.
It feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, I see this, and per the comment I left as well, I think this is a lot of like clickbaity hype, man. I think I mentioned it in the comments as well. It's like they call the NFL a copycat league. I feel like the retro gaming channels are very much that way as well. And one of these guys will start the snowball going, and they'll put a video out talking about how they're quitting retro gaming because the prices are so high, and you'll get a bunch of clicks and likes, and everybody else will jump on that bandwagon and start doing it too. But I can't seriously see, these 100,000 plus subscriber channels just getting out of the retro business all of a sudden when that's largely what built up their following in the first place. It just doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see retro RDT85 doing it since he covers more gaming news rather than retro gaming, but everybody else, I don't really see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a perfect situation for a little bit of a pivot in their focus on their channel as well. They say, I'm done with retro gaming, and that's a way of kind of giving the nod, wink, wink. We're gonna cover other modern systems a lot more heavily than the retro stuff. But yeah, you mentioned that there seem to be more collectors. Maybe it's just because collectors are more vocal and gamers are busy playing. But I mean, Jason and I are both kind of both. We collect and we game. So yeah. I think there's an awful lot of people just like us out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm a little bit of both. I like to collect and game. I mean, of course, and I think I mentioned this in the Overpaying for Games video, but high value games like Thousand Year Door or Klonoa, I feel like those games are sort of expensive for a reason. And me personally, I want to play them. I want to play Paper Mario and Klonoa. It's just a lot of people just want to put it in boxes or grade. And actually, while we're on the topic, what do you guys think of graded games and sealed games?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm with you, and I'm with John. I mean, we're kind of similar in the respect that we kind of like all elements of the hobby. We like to play these games. We like to mod these consoles. We like to get the best possible picture, and we also like to play the original cartridges or discs when we can. But sometimes it's just get out of reach, and you've got to make exceptions, and that's where I'm not opposed to doing things like flash carts and backup discs and things like that if I need to, right? But I mean, if you gave me my preference, would I love to play everything on 100% original hardware software? Yeah, absolutely. But it's getting so hard these days now to do that. It's not really a really kind of a reality. But yeah, I mean, I do see a lot of collectors kind of coming in and kind of making their comments as well. And I'm just going to go back, and I don't want to be like anti-big YouTuber type thing. I don't want to feel like I have that kind of mentality, but the bigger these channels get, the less I trust them, especially when it comes to like these kind of hot button topics of the moment, And if you think about it, they got big. I mean, some of them got big on retro gaming. I don't want to flash back too much and just say, how could you just pull the plug on that and suddenly go and expect your 200,000 subscribers to continue to follow and watch you, when you're not doing your bread and butter of what got you there, just no way. And once you get to 100,000 plus, they're looking at all the analytics and the metrics and things like that. What gets hits, what gets likes. If you've got the smaller channels that are like 200 less subscribers, things like that, they're doing stuff just just out of pure passion projects. They're doing it because they want to do it. They're not doing it necessarily because it's going to get a bunch of likes and views. And I kind of find myself personally switching gears and watching a lot more of the smaller channels, and just because of that, and
Yes.
yeah. Go ahead. No, I'll let you go.
Yes, same. I always try to look out for smaller YouTubers. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with people like the Pixel Game Squad or Retro or Rick. It's just they're big. And they kind of seem, they kind of have that like big YouTuber mentality. I don't know the right way to say this. It's just they just seem way too big. And like you guys said before, they grew their channels on this retro stuff. So. Yeah, I don't get why they would cut it off.
I think it skews how you queue up your content, right? So if you've got 100 people watching you're gonna do what you want to do. If you've got 100,000 people, you have a kind of feel like you have a necessity to keep that viewership going, right? And so you're looking around, you're taking the temperature of the other big channels and seeing what they're doing all the time, and you're kind of staying in lockstep with them, for better or for worse. I think for one of these types of subjects, like getting out of retro gaming, I think it's for the worst, because I think it's kind of clickbaity at its worst. I mean, we talked about, what these guys stand to gain too. I mean, they're always ignoring the positives. So there's a big, huge influx of these guys coming in and want to do retro gaming. They're building the hobby up. They're making the collections that these guys have, which sometimes are crazy extensive, huge collections worth, tens and maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, but still they're upset that the prices of games are going up because they can't add 10 or 20 every week. They've raised the stock of your collection, 100-fold in some of these cases, but does the hobby get any credit for that? No, it's all bad news because we've got new people coming in and buying up all the stuff, Just look at the flip side of the coin. There's some positives there too, and they're kind of not playing up that angle for this whole element here lately. So
yeah, and I forgot the name of this one guy, but I was watching this one small YouTuber. He's not too big, but he's kind of big. He said, a lot of big retro gaming YouTubers can't find stuff nowadays because they sort of hype stuff up and make things popular. But and granted, I sort of do this too. Like I said in my last video, I said, hey, if you want to look for deals, look at your local comic book store, toy store. And we all kind of do that from time to time, but a lot of big YouTubers kind of amplify that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think gone are the days where you're going to stumble upon someone who's uninformed about something vintage and its worth. I think we all have such a wealth of knowledge at our fingertips, and you can look up what an old board game costs nowadays, and you can find somebody within an hour on whether it's Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever, if you just put a decent price out there. I think some of these guys kind of profited off of other people's naivete, you could say. Some people just don't understand that the their son's comic book collection was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. If you've been around all these, we've probably been in similar hobbies too. Like I came from like the old baseball cards and football cards, for a while we did that. Did collectible toys for a while, and you kind of see the same elements pop up in all these hobbies as you see them kind of progress. They grow, they kind of hit this critical mass point, and then you'll kind of see like only the hardcore remain after that. I feel like we're still in the growth mode right now for retro gaming, where we're getting a lot of newcomers, and you're going to continue to see prices go up for a little while, and then eventually at some point we'll hit the ceiling, and I don't think it's going to bottom out like everybody thinks. I think you're just going to kind of see like a gradual drop in some of the values of the games, but right now, like John was saying, it's hard to go anywhere, and people are onto it now. Like, if you go to, flea marts or, like antique malls, I do a lot of antique malls, the few that we have here in town, they all kind of know that retro games, as soon as they get an old game in their hand, it's like they think they have like a Babe Ruth rookie card or something, they got to make sure it's, look it up 20 times from 20 different areas before they actually put a price on it. They're just over scrutinizing it right now. So it's kind of making it difficult to get deals. And, I keep sounding like a broken record on this, but I keep going back to Craigslist because everybody thinks Craigslist is dead, but there's still a lot of people out there that don't quite really know what they have, at least in my area. And if you're diligent, you can get some deals still, man. I mean, if you get out there and you work and you grind, you can get some deals on retro games. It's not as easy as it used to be, but it's still a possibility.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, I want to bring it back to what you said. Like, a lot of hobbies kind of the same elements. Like right now, we're dealing with graded games. I think baseball cards, they have like a grading system. Heritage auctions, baseball cards kind of have to deal with the same thing. So I guess you kind of are right in a way. Like the retro gaming community is growing. I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing. Like yes, I'm kind of happy that a lot of people are getting into it. It's just now things are a lot more expensive. Like my generation, my generation, for example, I grew up with the GameCube, PS2, OG Xbox. Now, well, before GameCube games were going crazy, now I think they're going down a little bit, and shit kind of evolves, I guess.
Yeah, graded is a kind of in the same family of collecting, but it's a step removed from, I think, what the gamers do. I'm not gonna buy something that's never been opened in hopes that it can be graded to a certain level and then sold again or whatever. I will buy something because it's got an impressive looking box though, and I'll put that on the shelf. And I don't have a problem with the grading. It's a bit artificially inflated, but all kind of collecting markets in the past have been artificially inflated. In fact, some of the guys involved in this WATA thing were involved with the coin collecting craze of the 70s. So, we're not too far removed from that.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. It's like talking about, WATA and VGA and all those grading things. Like my dad was a big coin collector, man. So when I was a little kid, he'd show me the difference between uncirculated and circulated and mint and all those types of things. And so that stuff really got into my blood at an early age. So I totally get it. And I had it when I was doing the toy collecting too, and even the baseball cards and football cards. And so I'm not surprised at all to see it make its way into video game. I'm actually surprised it took so long, but like John said, we've never seen anything so hyper inflated, like so quickly, like the Super Mario 64s that are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, that's way over the top. And there was no gradual incline to get to that level. It reeked of like, of scammy, scummy stuff, and I think that as they kind of pull back the curtain on all that, they're kind of realizing that the people that are really doing the research are finding out that maybe that was in fact what's going on. So, again, you don't go from like a copy of Super Mario 64 selling, even graded like $250, $300, which is, that's a pretty darn fair price, right? To like almost overnight selling for 250,000, 350,000, all these crazy. It just doesn't happen that way. There's no way that the market accelerates that quickly. So, I do think that, and I'm saying this as I like the graded stuff. I don't go actually actively pursue it that much, but I don't hate it either. But you can tell that something's not right there. Something's not right with that whole situation.
I mean,
when you can't find a graded copy of Nintendo World Championship somewhere that's worth what it should be. A truly rare, kind of coveted game in the gaming community, something like that, which is a game that you really don't want to play because it's set up for competition. I'm surprised that we're not seeing those go for these high prices, but we're seeing Mario 64, a game that they made and sold 15 million copies or something stupid like that. Probably the most common video game for the system.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you touched on this earlier too. It's the whole collector versus the game player, right? You have a game player mentality. You want to appreciate a game that is fun to play, And these guys are looking at more like pop culture icon type stuff, I think. Like, well, it's got Mario on it. It's got Link on it. Like, I know those things. You don't even have to be a gamer to understand that those are important things, right? And you and I may look at it differently. We may know that, Mario's a good thing, but some Mario games are better than others, and they don't know that, right? They just know kind of what year it came out, what system it's for, and there was a hugely popular character. And that's kind of the end, and then they just kind of go nuts on it. Or, that's assuming that it's a legitimate deal. If it's, somebody manipulating things behind the scenes, that's a different story. But either way, even the ones they seem to manipulate tend to be those types of titles, the Marios and the Zeldas, those types of things. So.
Yep, and And I will say this: I don't necessarily hate graded games. I just think it's kind of it's sort of scummy. Like take a stupid game for example, Shadow the Hedgehog. If you get it graded, it's at most going to go for like $100. And I just don't think that's right. Like if we're gonna grade games, we should grade great games like an complete in-box sealed Super Mario Brothers 3. That game should be graded, or rare NES games, or Little Samson. Those games I think should be graded, not I don't know, Mad Dash Racing for the OG Xbox.
Yeah.
I think it's because they can't find complete unopened copies of the truly rare.
Yeah, I'm almost scared to think what a Little Samson would go for, like in a WATA 9.6 grade or something. I think that would pretty much break the bank. Well, you think it would, but to John's point earlier, maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it wouldn't even sell for as much as the Super Mario 64. They don't know what that is. So I think what you'd have to see happen is more. And this it's kind of like the normal life cycle of something where you kind of supply and demand. I think if more gamers became interested in the idea of like this grading thing and said, you know what, not only do I want to have a playable copy of that game, but I also want to have a sealed graded one, then you would start to see the appreciation for those types of titles increase. But right now it's just value collectors and things like that are going nuts for pop culture icons. And I think that's why you're seeing it that way. But over time, if the graded games stick around for quite some time, I think you could see really good playing games start to appreciate it on a sealed level, on a graded level, things like that.
And actually, one more thing that I do want to mention is like when it comes to like pop culture icons, one thing that I've been looking for ever since I got my NES was Rob the Robot. For some reason, that is not incredibly expensive. It's just like $100, and I'm thinking a lot of people buy it for that price because they see it as like an '80s pop icon or something like that. Like, or take the Resident Evil chainsaw controller. Like weird stuff like that is really expensive.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because people see it as a pop culture icons.
And Rob the Robot looks cool as hell too. You got to give him that. He does look.
Oh
cool.
yeah.
But yeah, I get you. I mean,
Power Glove as well. Power
Yeah,
Glove
exactly.
looks great, but
Yep.
it looks a lot better on the shelf than on your arm.
I put Rob and the Power Glove in the same category, man. Because Rob games, they were better than Power Glove games, but they weren't the funnest in the world, man. There was only a handful of them too, so you wouldn't really buy your Rob for like play value because there's really not much there, But it does look cool on the shelf. It definitely does, and kind of like the Power Glove. I'd agree. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably use Rob the Robot as like shelf candy or whatever. But another thing similar to that is the Virtual Boy. Now, the Virtual Boy is something different. I actually want to try that out. But am I going to spend $500 to $600 to try it out? Of course not.
No, yeah, that's its own thing. It's got its own kind of little following.
You can emulate.
Yeah. I'd actually probably put that console in there with Rob and the Power Glove. They're all kind of similar, aren't they? Really, kind of collectible. Not really great for playing, but they do have a following. There's kind of a cult following that goes on for all three of those things, I think, and they probably might all be in a lot of the same collections, I think, with each other too.
Yeah. Now,
Oh yeah.
I'll be honest because I've run out of questions. What games have you guys been playing recently?
I've been playing my Turbo Graphics games. I popped a few cards out and dusted them off, threw them in. I like those arcade ports that they've got on my old systems. Arcade ports are my favorite games of all.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I've been playing I'm doing a video right now. I'm trying to complete it on a One Life No Death playthrough for Castlevania on the original NES. So I've been doing that the past couple days, getting some footage for that. And I love that game too. I never complain about playing the original Castlevania. I think it's an awesome game. But I've been doing some kind of more modernish stuff. I've been buying some copies of I'm stuck on this Unreal kick right now. I've been playing a lot of the different variations of Unreal. I've got one of the ones on PlayStation 2, got one of the ones on OG Xbox, PlayStation 3, and I'm kind of comparing and contrasting, not necessarily for a video or anything, just kind of just for something fun to do. So I've been digging deep into all these console variations of Unreal and Unreal Tournament, just kind of playing through them. It's just kind of what I stumbled into. I got them in my local Game Over Retro store. I had a bunch of credit, and I think they were a 20% off sale. And I said, I'm gonna get all these Unreals, and brought them home. So it's kind of how it worked, and that's kind of what I've been playing.
Well,
Which one's your
recently,
favorite? Which one's your favorite there, Jason?
You know, I put a picture of this on the Discord, but it's got to be Unreal Tournament 3 on the PS3. I think that was probably my favorite one. I think it was very well done, like very comparable to like the P. You know, I was playing that one on PCs back in the day, right? So I was kind of a PC snob at the time, right? I didn't think there's really any way that the PS3 was going to do it justice, but I was wrong. You know, it was really so far I've really liked it, really enjoyed it. The graphics are, you know, in 1080p. They're not, you know, it's not going to be PC level, but it is pretty darn good, and you know, it plays exactly like the PC version. And I just fell right back into the old groove and got through, you know, playing. I looked at the clock and I'm like, man, I've already spent 5-6 hours playing this thing. It's nuts, you know. So I think right now that's my favorite. But ask me again probably in a week, and I may have changed, right?
Yeah.
Well, recently I've been sucked into Metroid Prime. I'm confused, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've been playing through a little bit of that one too. I got stuck, and I'm kind of like I kind of have come back to it, and it's not because I don't want to. It's just I got sidetracked doing other things. But that's probably been one of my favorite kind of modern retro games that's come out in a long time. I'm really appreciative of that one, and really kind of blown away at the quality of it and how good it actually turned out. So yeah, it's a very good game. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting like a first-person shooter on the GameCube. Like this is
you
my
know
first.
Yeah, you said Prime. I read that as Dread. I'm sorry. I read that as Dread. Yeah, I got you. So I was playing Metroid Dread on the Switch, but yeah, Metroid Prime, absolutely. My bad on that one. So.
It's alright, but yeah, I didn't expect like, you know, a hardcore first-person shooter on the GameCube. It's really good, and I think I said it in my doesn't think of video, but it's very similar to Doom in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that was kind of a pretty big move for it too, for the franchise at that time, you know. So I know it was one of those things where is it going to make the transition, and I think it did just fine. You know, it was one of those ones that actually made it to 3D and did a really good job of doing it. You know, so yeah, that's an impressive title. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of glad Metroid didn't really make it on the N64 because I can't really see like a hardcore Metroid game on the N64. I don't know if they would pull it off well.
You want to take that one, John?
Kind of. It's an overlooked generation there with the Saturn, the 64, the PlayStation. A lot of people look back on them, and unless there's some nostalgia there, some personal heavy nostalgia, they're not interested in seeing those choppy polygons.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was probably a smart move. You know, it's one of those things where there was a lot of missteps in the N64 era from some really popular franchises. So if you look at like Castlevania, it didn't really fare that well, especially for that first entry out into the, you know, kind of the polygon realm. And, you know, Mega Man had a misstep in there as well. I mean, there's quite a few of them that really didn't make the transition as seamlessly as like Super Mario did, or, you know, you could even argue maybe Zelda did. You know, there were some misfires for sure. And I think Metroid was kind of cautiously watching on the sidelines to see what was going to go on with that. And said, you know what, we're going to wait this one out. You know, we're going to skip this one. And, you know, may have been for the best. You know, you just never know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that generation. Like me personally, I think I played like the PS1 once back in the day, but I honestly kind of love this generation. I'll admit it has a lot of issues, but I like it. It has a lot of great games, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. You know, I think John and I were just kind of talking about this on our Discord earlier. We kind of in a couple Discords together, and I think the whole idea of N64 and that generation, that era came up, and I was kind of saying, yeah, I was kind of not that big of a fan, but then over the past probably year or so, really kind of looking for some titles that were kind of sleeper hits and things I didn't actually play when I was, you know, younger, when I had the system. I'm actually developing an appreciation for that console that I didn't have, you know, even 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, you know. So you gotta dig a little bit.
There's this thing with Nintendo's, they have like, it doesn't matter which console or which generation for Nintendo, but they have like the worst attach rates ever. People don't buy the games, and that's why in the resale market, Nintendo games are so valuable, because they're much more rare than other systems. You look at the attach rate for like Super Nintendo, and it's like barely over 3 games per system are purchased after the thing is purchased. And so I would go to my friend's house for whether it's the Super Nintendo or the 64 or the GameCube, and they only ever had 2 games, and they were the same 2 games that everyone else had.
Yeah, it's usually like a Mario Kart, a Mario Brothers, a Zelda, and we're talking about Metroid earlier, and Metroid really kind of falls into that category you just described. Is like people think that Metroid is always a super huge heavy hitter mega seller on the Nintendo consoles, and that's not the case. It actually has a really big cult following, but if you look at the number of copies of games that actually get sold for the Metroid franchise, they're not really that terribly high, so.
Yep.
Really, I've always thought Metroid was a big heavy hitter.
Well, it isn't from the gaming community standpoint, but like John was saying, from the general public, Joe Sixpack and all those guys, they're not necessarily buying every Metroid game that comes out, like they're doing for a Super Mario Kart or a Mario Kart or a Mario Brothers, or even it's like a Sonic would be comparable on the the Genesis or the Sega hardware. But Metroid is one of those things that it was always highly regarded, I think, from a review standpoint too. So the gaming community that did the review, some of the bigger sites always really enjoyed the Metroid and the Zelda games, but it didn't necessarily push them into the stratosphere as far as how many they sold. So yeah.
I don't know the time period when it flipped, but there used to be a very common kind of feeling among gamers that like, I don't want a game with too much story, and I don't want a game with too much inventory list, and I just want to go and just blast away. And then it's almost like that log turned, and every game has a story and an inventory list and RPG elements now. And I mean, well, modern games are all, it seems like, first person adventures.
Yeah. Well, what kind of coincides with that, I would say, is the death of the arcade, right? The pick up and play experience was usually cloned from the arcades, and when that actually kind of died, the gaming companies were kind of collectively looking at each other and going, all right, well, what do we do now? We don't really have that blueprint anymore, And around that time, you started seeing things like Japanese RPGs really kind of making it over here and kind of making a dent in some of the gaming kind of, societies, things like that, gaming culture. And I think that you're right. They're like, well, we don't have these arcades anymore. Why don't we sprinkle in some Final Fantasy into this bad boy and see if it runs, So yeah, I think that probably, we'd have to look at the dates, but I'm pretty sure those would probably line up pretty closely,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, but I feel like the arcade really died around like my kind of generation, like the 2000s. There wasn't really any good hardcore arcade games. The most I had back in the day was God, I can't remember the name now, but it was like Crazy Taxi and some other game. Like the arcades weren't really huge when I was a kid, unless you're at like Chuck E. Cheese or the fun park or something.
Yeah.
You'd have to sneak in with like your little brother or something. I can be here. I'm watching him. I didn't come for the skee ball.
Yeah, around the time I think you were kind of probably checking out arcades, they kind of shifted to this model where it had to have some sort of unique kind of element, like a sit-down element or a bicycle handlebar or some crazy thing, like not to say that didn't exist back in the golden age of the arcades, but it was getting to be where if you didn't have those types of elements going on, some big huge cockpit or something, it really wasn't a draw, because what was happening around that time, that you were coming up in the arcades, like you mentioned Crazy Taxi. There was almost a 1-to-1 version of Crazy Taxi with the home consoles with the Dreamcast. You could play almost literally the exact same quality that was going on at the arcade at home. Why are you going to waste your quarters up at Chuck E. Cheese? You're not really going to do that unless I could sit down in it, grab a steering wheel, work the accelerator, get something like that, some sort of kind of a unique element to it that you couldn't do at home. And that's really what arcades were kind of trying to do to hang on around that time. You saw a lot of like light gunnish games, the Area 51s and things like that were doing the double shooters and things like that. And those kind of came to dominate around that time.
Yeah, but then you had those motorcycle games you had to lean. Right.
Yeah, for sure those, So, you saw Cruising hanging around doing some things. They had kind of some later ones in the Hydro Thunder, the big jet boat thing in the arcade. That was pretty cool. But yeah, you kind of saw it on its way out, but man, if you could have seen it on its heyday, it was really pretty incredible stuff. It was like, we didn't have multiplayer, so not any real sense as far as like online. So if you wanted to go play like the best guy at Street Fighter 2, man, you had to head down to the local arcade with a handful of quarters and see what was up that day, and if there was no action there, you moved down to the laundromat or whatever else was down the street to see if you could find some competition. So No, it doesn't sound better, and it sounds worse, than what we have today. But it was actually kind of fun to kind of hunt out those kind of like spirits that were out there doing the same thing. So
Actually, two of the things I want to mention when it comes to like arcades or whatever, but I remember this one time back when I was a kid, we were at some hotel or something. It was like this Fast and Furious trip off game. And granted, the arcades were dead, but there was still a little bit of multiplayer here and there. It was like me and this random kid. There was like two machines. We played on the same level, and we were just like, hey, who could win first or who could go the fastest? So that was still sort of around that. And I remember when I was a kid, some arcades had Wii U like demo units, where you could like rent out a Wii for like 5 minutes or so.
yeah. Well, they had the kiosks and everything too, all the shopping malls and things like that for like the game stores. Now those were kind of cool. And then there was a lot of the rent the unit type stuff going on at Blockbuster and some of the video stores, and that was always kind of a big thing too. So if you didn't have the console, you didn't quite have the scratch to buy the console, your parents might rent one for you for a weekend for your birthday or something. So I remember a lot of that going on as well too. So it was just interesting, different times. So I'm glad you got to see some element of it though, so you can kind of compare and contrast and take notes on all that type of stuff, because I talked to a lot of gamers these days that never even set foot in any kind of really functional arcade. They just missed that window, and some of them look back at it kind of longingly, wishing they checked it out, and other people are like, man, it's not anywhere close as good as what we got online. And you know what, both are kind of right. Neither are right, neither are wrong. So but if you were there, there was some element of goodness to that whole idea, that whole scene. So
Yeah, I mean, arcades must have been really competitive back in the day. But I mean, online to some degree, yeah, I guess it's correct to some extent. You can kind of get the same vibe from online, but it's not really the same as being in person or beating the best guy in Street Fighter 2 or something.
Yeah, and every machine has its own kind of quirks. They they had rather rudimentary AI back then, but like fighting games in particular, every single one of those boards was assembled by hand, and you might find one. They're all on the same level, whether it be like level 4 or level 5 when you go up and put your money in. But it's like you would find one and you just couldn't get past Dulcine, like no matter what, and it would just wax you. And so you go, oh, I'm not going back to Aladdin's Castle because I can't play that Street Fighter 2. I'm going to go over to Planet Pinball and we're going to play that one.
Yeah.
So
I remember too, like kind of one of the cool things about not having the internet around. Well, I guess it was cool and it was bad in a way, but all the crazy rumors that were going on at the arcades. Do you remember that? So I remember there was the one going around that like Zangief from Street Fighter 2 could turn into a bear if you did this right combo on the sticks. Of course, it was all complete BS. It wasn't real, but we didn't know because we didn't have the internet there to disprove things yet. So we're like, oh man, I guess you can turn into a bear in Zangief if you do like 5 spinning pile drivers in a row and then something. And I think there was like a rumor that Guile could put somebody in handcuffs, and it was all sorts of crazy stuff just going around, and people were just making it up, and you didn't have any way to say no because you never knew. Right? There was possibility, you never knew.
And then Mortal Kombat and NBA Jam came out, and all the rumors were true.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's a guy named Reptile, and you can find him at the bottom of the pit.
Yeah, exactly. So the creators of the games kind of played off of some of that stuff too. They kind of heard what was going on in the arcades, and they took that ball and ran with it. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, again, rumors and stuff that kind of died with my generation. Like of course, the internet was so primitive when I was a kid, but everybody knew Luigi wasn't real. Super Mario 64 stuff like that kind of died with my generation as well. And I mean, of course, you guys know. So I grew up with the PS2 game people, all that stuff. That has its fun and charm. All that has its fun to it. It's just you don't really get that mystery to it anymore.
Yeah, that's true, man. I mean, it's one of those things where if you want to have that experience, you kind of have to create it for yourself. You have to stay off the internet, and I try to do that. We're talking about, I mistakenly thought you were talking about Metroid Dread earlier, but I've done that for Metroid Dread. Like I've got friends and like people in the YouTube community, they're doing all these videos on how to beat the boss in Metroid Dread. I'm staying away from all that stuff. I'm trying to attack it old school. I'm not looking at any, online hints. I'm just trying to get out there and see if I can beat the game just like I would have done back in the 90s, so. And that game is not easy either. So it's proven to be kind of difficult stretch there that I've hit, but I know I'll get through it if I put in the time and do it. But it's all about discipline, like if you can stay that discipline, I think you can find a positive experience out of it. If you can't, you know what? I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong either. Either way you're playing the game and you're having fun with it, and that's what's cool.
Yep, that's true. To be honest, I try to do that with most games that I play. Like, and this is sort of a modern one, but Portal 2, I've been going back to that game recently. And I've tried to avoid all the long plays and stuff like that. And I've been trying to do that with Jet Set Radio and, of course, Metroid Prime. Like again, like if I'm really stuck, of course I'll pull it out. But if I'm just stuck on some random level, then I got to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think Portal. You mentioned Portal. That's one of those games I think that really holds up well too. I think it's really aging well. Every time I go back and kind of go back to revisit that one, I'm amazed with like kind of what it was able to pull off and do. And that's a good one. That's definitely a good one. It's definitely one of the classics of that era, I think, right there. And you don't hear a lot of people talk about it right now. It's kind of that interim period where it was really hot, really popular when it came out, but it's kind of in a lull right now. I think it's going to come back eventually, and people are going to have really positive views on that one when they kind of come back and retro game hard from that particular genre, that era. So
yeah, the good ones always come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, always come back. Doesn't matter what genre they're in. I mean, they were, Berserk from when 1979 or whatever, and then it moved on to the Atari 4 years later. But that's a great game. You can't get around it. You run through a maze and you shoot robots. Sounds like fun.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned that you talk about like the kind of even like the old rudimentary, even like every time I put an Atari 2600 out, and my son's he's just about to turn 12, but even for like the past few years, I remember thinking this will be like the ultimate test to see whether or not these games hold up. And I think we had Centipede going, right? Centipede on the Atari 2600. And I swear to you, man, he put down the Xbox for a few days, man. And we went and just tried to go high score, but Centipede for like 3 straight days. I remember thinking that is probably the ultimate test right there, that game withstood the test of time. That Centipede on the 2600, as basic as that game looks, as rudimentary as those little graphics were, I think we're even playing it over an RF connection. Look, it didn't look great, but the gameplay completely shone through, and really, we had a great time. So, you're right. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to blow you away to be a well-crafted game that stands the test of time.
Yep. I mean, it's sort of like very similar to me, like the N64. Like I've heard a lot about it over the years, and then when I finally got one, of course, my expectations were severely lowered, but I still, kind of loved it.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with loving the N64, man. I mean, there's a lot of goodness there that can be mined out of that console, but keep in mind too, like John was saying, man, those early Polygon games, and this is the same way on the PlayStation 1 as well. You'll see the same thing. The bad games, they stayed bad.
Oh yeah.
The good games, they're still going to be good games, but those bad games, man, they're probably not even worth wasting your time on. So, if you pop in one of those stinkers on the N64 and you're like, whoa, this is one of those rough ones everybody's been talking about, don't spend too much time trying to make it work. Move on to one of the other ones that do, because there's too much gaming time wasted on bad games that, if you determine you don't like one, move on, and you're going to find those, on the N64. They're there. So.
To be honest, I tried Superman 64. I played it for about an hour, and I couldn't.
Yeah,
I couldn't
they're fun to just check out, from a curiosity standpoint. But man, don't waste too much time trying to master that one.
Yeah. Now I know you mentioned the 360 earlier. I think in the next couple of years, the 360 should be coming up when it comes to this nostalgia stuff. Like I said, I grew up with the 360. A lot of people my age are probably we're probably getting starting to feel nostalgic for the 360. I think it might be coming up here because we're already seeing it with the PS3 and starting seeing that servers are shutting down and PS3 games are starting to come up a little bit. What do you guys think?
Yes, yeah, I think as soon as you get a job and you start pulling down some regular dollars and you got things figured out, paid off enough of your student loans, you go, hey man, I'm going back and trying to capture some of that I had before I had any real responsibility. I want to go back and get those games that I always wanted and never could get. I think there's going to be a resurgence for pretty much each and every worthwhile console and game out there at some point in time.
Yeah, it's definitely a cyclical thing, and everybody's watching right now to see what's going to be the next one that's going to drop. Right, everybody's kind of targeting the Wii. Could the Wii one be it? Could the 360 kind of be it?
Oh,
PS3. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of a collection of kind of all three of those. I think you're going to see the PS3 and the Xbox 360 really crank it up because they had some incredible games, and that you also that's really going to be the last generation that wasn't fully dependent on the console requiring downloadable content and things like that. You know, as you moved into the Xbox One and PS4, it became a much bigger thing. But 360 and PS3 can still be pretty much a standalone system. If you got the disc and the console, doesn't matter if you don't even have internet in your house, you're still going to pretty good gaming experience out of it. And I think that's going to be important too. So yeah, I look for both of those to take off here pretty quickly.
yeah, I'd say the Wii. I'd say the Wii and the 360 because I feel like the PS3 required more online stuff. And it's going to be kind of weird when the PS4 and the Xbox One start to become retro. And God, I hope I'm. Well, I'm probably going to be way too old to. I'm probably going to be extremely old when the Xbox One and the PS4 become nostalgic. But yeah, it's going to be weird, you know. Like how are people going to do? So are people just going to buy systems with all the games installed, or I don't know.
I'm sure someone will come up with a solution to move hard drive assets onto the internet, and you can download all the additional content for an old game. I'm sure that's going to be something that it's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I mean, the hacking community, man, never underestimate those guys in any capacity at anything, right? Yeah. So eventually they're going to figure out how to, reverse engineer all these consoles that are, either current or like just off the, just past generation modern stuff. They're going to get that stuff figured out, and you're going to see that be a thing. I still think that you're going to probably get physical collections because they look really cool on a shelf, man. And it really is kind of a, kind of an element of a bygone, or at least by then, I think by the, let's say 8-10 years out, that will be a bygone era where we've got stacks of games behind us because most of the modern consoles are all trying to force us into a model where we're all online all the time and everything's downloadable and that's all you get, right? But I still think that's going to be a really kind of a kind of a curious thing to collect for. And I think you're going to see people that grew up with the CD game in their hand are going to still want to have that CD game in their case behind them. And so I don't think it's going to die, but it's just like the options we have today. We've got ever drives and burnable discs and all sorts of stuff. If you want to use those things, you can. But at the same time, there's still going to always be a portion of the market that's looking to capture it 100% all the way through from the disc in their hand to the original control, original console. And I think 360 and PS3 will be that same way.
Yeah. And speaking of like speaking of systems that try to push you to go online, I see the Switch kind of doing that with these weird cases that don't even come with the game. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, retro gaming is just overall going into like a weird. It's just overall going into like a weird space. It's no longer this, kind of niche hobby anymore. Now a lot of big YouTube, I would say mostly big YouTubers and a lot of the heritage auctions are trying to take advantage of it, and it's it can be a good thing and a bad thing, but for the most part, I kind of see it as a bad thing.
I see that the realm, the sphere that is referred to as retro gaming is growing. I don't think anyone in our Discord really has the exact same taste or the exact same niche as somebody else. We all have kind of interchangeable elements of what we like and what we look for, but there's so much personality still, even though it's becoming hugely popular. I just there's so much room for originality that you can display just by putting, like Jason's sitting in front of his wall of consoles here. That's personality right there.
Yep.
And it the picture that tells 1,000 words right there. You got your consoles. It kind of tells people what you are. Like I don't put my consoles in my videos. I don't put my game collection in my videos. I play on original hardware with original software. That's it. That's all people need to know about it.
Yeah.
And I don't do reviews because I don't think it's I don't want to hear a game reviewed for the 100th time. I want to see somebody play it, and I don't want to watch for an hour. I just want to watch for like 8 minutes, and so that's what I do. It reflects who I am and the way that I play. And I think that's why people still do YouTube channels about retro video games. We're not trying to be famous. We're just trying to
No, yeah, I agree.
to share.
You know why I do retro gaming videos on YouTube? So I can meet folks like this, man, and do these types of things, man. I get a kick out of meeting other people. And, you know, like John was saying, there is no one way to do this. Retro gaming is such a big kind of idea that, you know, you might meet a retro gamer that plays nothing on a Raspberry Pi, you know, doesn't mean he's wrong. Doesn't mean that he's doing it the wrong way. Or you might meet a guy that like, well, I've got to have the original hardware, but I want to play every game known to man, so I've got to have an EverDrive. He's not doing it wrong, you know. There's another guy that says, I won't do anything but play original hardware on an original consumer grade CRT television. Okay. He's not wrong. Like, none of these people are wrong. There's so many different ways to skin this cat. And I think it's pretty cool. Like John said, like there's, you know, we'll have like 20 people together in a Discord. These guys will have 3 or 4 or 5 of the same slices, but these guys over here might have 3 or 4 or 5 different slices. We still can all talk about the same things, but our collections and our approaches are never 100% identical with each other. You got that guy that's like 85% of you, you know, and you got another guy that's maybe 20% of you, and you know from talking to them what they like and what they don't like, and that's all cool. You know, I keep a pretty open mind as to what this hobby is, and I never try to say that the way I do it is the one true way, you know. So yeah, that's my take on it anyway. So
no, I could absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, if you get frustrated with somebody, you just start throwing the fanboy word around, and just knock them down a little bit.
Yeah. It's also that, you know, so one of the reasons why I don't try to discredit the whole graded scene, you know, coming in, like I know there was a bit of animosity towards those guys coming in initially going, oh, here we go, graded WADA stuff going through the roof, you know, and we talked a little bit about that earlier, and I won't touch too much on that, but I'm like, hey, you know what, if that's their approach to the hobby, you know, I'm not going to kick them out of the room. I'll gladly have a discussion with them over why they thought that game was worth grading, or why they appreciated it, or why they liked it. And they could be a hardcore gamer, or they could just be somebody who appreciates the pop culture element of it. I still want to hear what they have to say, you know, and why they wanted that up on their wall or on their shelf or whatever it is, you know. So
yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest again, I don't hate it. I guess I just don't really, you know, understand it. Like there's this guy on Instagram, and he had a graded copy of either Mega Man 5 or 6. I don't know. I don't remember. I was just like, hey, I'm not trying to be mean, but why do you have the game graded? And he was just like, oh, yeah, I have a graded so I can show my kids in the future. And you know what? That's understandable. I can definitely understand that. Again, I don't necessarily dislike graded games. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm sort of confused on it.
Yeah, I think there's really 2 schools of thought here with that, and you know, and the same thing happened in the collectible market for like toys and stuff too. Is if it's already out of the package, the general consensus or idea is that it should stay in the wild, right? You shouldn't take that one and seal it up in plastic to where it can never be, you know, touched, held, played again, right? But then you have sealed games now at this point in time. If you have those in your collection, I can almost guarantee you most people aren't breaking the seal open on a Super Mario Brothers 3 for the NES right now. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You know? Not just to play it, because that's almost stupid now to do that, right? I don't care how much of a purist you are. If you break that seal on mint condition, in sealed Super Mario Brothers 3, you're a little nuts, right? So you've got all these games out there that are probably never going to be opened again anyway, right? Why not get those graded? I guess I can see that, but I'm also seeing grading copies of games that are, you know, just loose copies that are in pretty good shape. I personally don't dig that approach, right? I don't think that's the right way to do it, but you know, I'm not going to tell somebody they're wrong for doing it, but I think you're kind of seeing 2 different camps split up, right? The graded sealed, okay, I get it. The graded everything else that happens to be known to man, I don't know about that. I'm not sure I love that one, you know? So, John, you feel kind of the same, or?
I think there are different opinions about the same thing, right? I believe that a game, the interaction that you have with the game is the important thing, but somebody out there believes that the visual representation of what the thing looked like brand new out of the store is the important part. And I think Jason's right. There's no wrong way to come at it, because we don't really travel in the same circles as the people who are looking for sealed copies of games. I could care less. I don't even care if the label is in great shape. As long as I know what the game is by looking at it, then that's going to be okay for me. But Jason has a very nice looking collection, and he likes a pristine label. You know, if he's not against having something that he can play, but if push comes to shove and it's this one or that one, he's going to choose the nicer looking copy. And that's right too. There's no wrong way around it.
Yeah, so. I agree, man. John and I kind of know each other pretty well, so we kind of got each other kind of figured out, right? So we, in case you haven't already figured that out, the Nostalgia 64, we kind of follow each other around in the same circles as far as watching the same videos. I think that's how we kind of stumbled onto yours at the same time, around the same time. But yeah, we've been watching your channel, man, and we like what you got going on over there, man. You got some good stuff, man. And interesting take on some of your videos. Yeah, so we appreciate you giving us an opportunity to kind of pop in there and kind of take over your comment section sometime.
Hey, no problem. But
well, anything else you want to? You know, I know we're kind of pushing up on the hour mark here. Is there anything else you want to talk about or close up with, or anything? Tell us a little bit about kind of what you got going on, what you have plans for your channel or planned for your channel here in the future.
Well, at the moment, I'm kind of releasing some short form videos, but I got some long form videos in a way. I plan on starting a spin-off of the Game Boy Advance reviews. I'm going to do the PSP reviews. Because, like I said in my video, like on just one random day, my dad knocked on my door. He's just like, hey, you know, I found your sister's old PSP. You want it? Yeah, and I figured I'd get her up and running, and I'm starting a collection for it. So why not review some of the games?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
PSP's great.
Oh yeah, it's like a mini PS2. You know, it's yeah. And,
yeah, those are you know, they have a cult following too. They're definitely underappreciated. You know, I think they were underappreciated in their time, and I think even still now. You know, so. But yeah, that's gonna be a fun one, man. You're gonna have a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, I also plan on collecting the movies because it seems useless, but fuck it, why not?
Yeah. Hey, man, it's not useless if you can watch a movie on it. It's got a purpose, right? There you go.
True.
There's some pretty crazy stuff they can do with hacking, though. So I don't know if you want to take that route, but those talking about the hacking scene, man. They really got some stuff going on with those too, from what I recall. So.
Actually, yeah, I don't know if he's watching, but shout out to a friend of mine, Shreebs. He's sending me a multi-cart with the God of War Chains of Olympus. So shout out to him.
Cool, good deal.
But yeah, another video I have coming out is why doesn't anybody talk about the portable Mario games? And it's gonna be a bit different. You know, people talk about the 2D era, the 3D era of Mario. Nobody really talks about the portable games, and I want to touch on that a little bit.
I like that.
Yeah. We're looking forward to checking all that out, man. So once you get it going, we'll probably pop over there for sure and give it a watch and a like and probably a handful of comments, I would guess.
You're always welcome.
Yeah.
And I plan on starting 2 new series. It's still in the idea stage. One of the series is going to be called Why Is It So Iconic? I'm going to talk. Well, the first episode is going to be about the first 3 Mario games, Mario 1, 2, and 3. I'm just going to talk about why they seem to be so iconic. The second one is going to be the 3D San Andreas for the PS2. I have a firm idea of what I want to do with this series. It's just how do I start it? How do I plan it? Like what do I do with it? I'm still working that one out.
Cool. Sounds good.
The second series I plan on starting is sort of a review of each generation. I'm going to talk about the Magnavox Odyssey days, the Atari 2600, the NES, and honestly, I think for the earlier generations, you guys might want to be a part of it because I don't know much about it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just let us know what you want to do. I'm down for it at least. So.
Yeah, anytime. Absolutely anytime.
I cut my teeth on the 2600, man. So I was out there, hitting the old school controller, man, with the big red button, and that was my first console system, and I kind of worked my way through there. So I can touch on a little bit throughout the generations as we go through them if you wanted to do something like that. So just let me know, let us know. We'll definitely jump in and out and help however we can.
Yeah, cool. But other than that, that's honestly about it. But I'm honestly, I'm happy. I'm happy we had this conversation. I'm glad you guys, stated your opinions on comics. I'm glad you guys stated your opinions on the comments because again, you guys said a lot more about the retro gaming community than I did in the video.
No, man. I think I guess we're just out there living it every day. So we got a lot to say when it comes time to give us an opportunity to kind of shout out like that. So, but yeah, you can tell we've been thinking about this stuff, right? Just a little bit.
Yep.
Cool, man. All right. Well, hey, stay on with us here, and we'll I'll go ahead and stop the recording here, but don't drop off the call yet. So.